If you're over 45 and you're waking up exhausted no matter how many hours you sleep, if you're gaining weight around your belly, even though your diet hasn't changed, and if you feel wired at night but completely drained in the morning, I need you to stop what you're doing and watch this video right now. Because what I'm about to share with you is something most doctors never discuss during a routine checkup. And it starts with something you're probably eating within 2 to 3 hours of going to bed tonight. I'm Dr. James Andrews, and for over 2 decades I've been studying the relationship between nutrition, hormonal health, and the aging process in women and men over 40. In 2024, a landmark study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism followed 1,400 adults between the ages of 45 and 72 over a 3-year period. What researchers found was both alarming and completely overlooked by mainstream medicine. The participants who consumed specific foods within 3 hours of bedtime showed cortisol levels up to 64% higher during the night compared to those who didn't. And elevated nighttime cortisol, what scientists now call nocturnal cortisol dysregulation, doesn't just wreck your sleep. It silently destroys your hormonal balance from the inside out, accelerating aging, increasing belly fat, crushing your metabolism, and in women, dramatically worsening every single symptom of perimenopause and menopause. Here's what makes this so dangerous. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone. In a healthy body, cortisol follows a natural daily rhythm. It peaks in the morning to wake you up and gradually falls throughout the day, reaching its lowest point at night, so your body can rest, repair, and rebalance every other hormone system. But when cortisol spikes at night, that entire rhythm collapses. Your body can't produce adequate progesterone, estrogen conversion goes haywire, testosterone drops, thyroid function slows, growth hormone, the hormone responsible for cellular repair and fat burning while you sleep, gets almost completely suppressed. And the worst part, you don't feel it happening in real time. You just feel progressively worse over months and years, and most doctors chalk it up to normal aging or just stress without ever investigating the root cause. What I'm going to show you today are the specific foods triggering this cascade, starting with the one that shocks almost every patient I've worked with. Stay with me through this entire video, because food number 1 on this list is something that nearly every health-conscious woman over 45 believes is a healthy evening snack. It's marketed as natural, it's sold in every health food store, and it is silently flooding your body with cortisol-spiking compounds every single night. I'll reveal it in just a few minutes. Let's start with food number 5 and work our way up to the most damaging one. Before you close this video, I know you've been told dark chocolate is good for you, and in the right context and the right timing, there is truth to that. The flavonoids in cacao do support cardiovascular health. But here's what nobody tells you about eating dark chocolate after 7 p.m. when you're over 45. Cacao contains 2 powerful stimulant compounds, theobromine and caffeine. A standard 1-ounce square of 70% dark chocolate contains between 20 and 60 milligrams of caffeine. That's roughly the equivalent of half a cup of coffee. But unlike coffee, most people don't think of chocolate as a stimulant. So they eat it at 9 or 10 p.m. without a second thought. Here's the mechanism. Theobromine has a half-life of approximately 7 to 12 hours in the human body. That means if you eat dark chocolate at 9 p.m., there are still meaningful levels of theobromine in your bloodstream at 4 or 5 inches in the morning. Theobromine directly stimulates your adrenal glands, the same glands that produce cortisol. A 2022 study from the University of Sydney found that late-day cacao consumption elevated nighttime cortisol by 22% in women over 40. With the effect being significantly stronger in perimenopausal women due to their already elevated baseline adrenal sensitivity. The fix is simple. If you love dark chocolate, eat it before 2 p.m. Same health benefits, none of the hormonal disruption. This one surprises people. A charcuterie board or a little aged cheese before bed feels like a sophisticated low-carb evening snack. And if you're following any version of a keto or low-carb approach, you might even feel virtuous about it. But aged cheeses, Parmesan, aged cheddar, Gouda, Gruyere, and fermented meats like salami, pepperoni, and prosciutto are extremely high in a compound called tyramine. Tyramine is an amino acid derivative that directly triggers the release of norepinephrine, a stimulatory neurotransmitter that activates your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response. And when your sympathetic nervous system activates at night, your adrenal glands follow immediately by releasing cortisol. A study published in the journal Nutrients in 2023 found that high tyramine meals consumed within 4 hours of bedtime elevated nighttime norepinephrine and cortisol levels by up to 38% in adults over 45, disrupting slow-wave sleep, the deepest, most restorative stage, by an average of 34 minutes per night. 34 minutes of lost deep sleep every night. That's nearly 4 hours per week of hormonal repair time your body's being robbed of. If you want to include these foods in your diet, eat them at lunch. Before bed, swap to low-tyramine proteins like eggs, fresh chicken, or Greek yogurt. Now we're getting into territory that affects an enormous number of people over 45, and this one is misunderstood even by many health professionals. We're talking about eating crackers, toast, cereal, rice cakes, or any high glycemic carbohydrate as a standalone evening snack without protein or fat to buffer the glycemic response. Here's the mechanism. When you eat a high glycemic carbohydrate alone at night, your blood sugar spikes rapidly. Your pancreas releases a surge of insulin to bring it back down. But in people over 45, and particularly in women during perimenopause and menopause, insulin sensitivity is already reduced. This means the blood sugar correction often overshoots, triggering a condition called reactive hypoglycemia, a blood sugar crash that happens 2 to 4 hours after you eat. And here's the cortisol connection that almost nobody talks about. When your blood sugar crashes in the middle of the night, your body perceives it as an emergency. Your brain sends an immediate distress signal to your adrenal glands, which respond by releasing a surge of cortisol and adrenaline to raise blood glucose back to safe levels through a process called gluconeogenesis. This is exactly why so many women over 45 wake up suddenly between 2 and 4 a.m. feeling anxious, hot, and wide awake with a racing heart. It's not just hot flashes. It's a cortisol and adrenaline surge triggered by a blood sugar crash that was set in motion by what they ate 3 hours earlier. A 2023 meta-analysis in the journal Sleep Medicine reviewed data from over 19,000 participants and confirmed that reactive nocturnal hypoglycemia from evening high glycemic carbohydrate intake was associated with a 47% increase in nighttime cortisol awakening response in adults over 40. The fix: if you need an evening snack, pair any carbohydrate with a protein source and a healthy fat, a small apple with almond butter, a few crackers with eggs and avocado. The combination slows gastric emptying, flattens the glycemic curve, and prevents that cortisol spiking blood sugar crash. I want to address this one carefully because I know this is uncomfortable for many people. And I'm not here to tell you that you can never enjoy a glass of wine. But the science on this is extremely clear, and the hormonal impact on women over 45 specifically is something every woman deserves to know. Most people believe alcohol helps them sleep because it makes them feel drowsy and relaxed. And it's true, alcohol does reduce the time it takes to fall asleep initially. But what happens during the second half of the night is the opposite of restful. As your liver metabolizes alcohol, a process that typically takes 3 to 4 hours, it produces a byproduct called acetaldehyde, a toxic compound that directly stimulates your adrenal glands. Simultaneously, the sedative effect of the alcohol wears off and your nervous system rebounds into a hyper-aroused state, a phenomenon researchers call the rebound effect or alcohol withdrawal microcycle. The result is a dramatic spike in cortisol levels during the second half of the night, accompanied by fragmented REM sleep night sweats, increased heart rate, and in menopausal women significantly amplified hot flash frequency. A 2023 study from Stanford University's Sleep Research Center found that even a single glass of wine consumed within 3 hours of bedtime elevated nighttime cortisol by 31% and reduced REM sleep by 24%. In women over 45, with the hormonal disruption persisting measurably through the following morning. Furthermore, alcohol directly interferes with estrogen metabolism in the liver. It competes for the same enzymatic pathways used to process and eliminate excess estrogen, contributing to the estrogen dominance that worsens so many menopausal symptoms. If you enjoy wine socially, have it with dinner no later than 6 p.m. Give your liver 3 to 4 hours to fully process it before you sleep. That single timing shift can substantially reduce the cortisol and hormonal disruption without requiring you to eliminate it entirely. Before I reveal the number one worst food on this list, the one I promised you at the beginning, I need to give you the full picture of what chronically elevated nighttime cortisol is actually doing to your hormonal system over time, because once you understand the cascade, everything else will make much more sense. When cortisol remains elevated at night on a regular basis, your body begins what endocrinologists call the cortisol steal. Here's how it works. All of your steroid hormones, cortisol, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, DHEA, are manufactured from the same raw material, a molecule called pregnenolone. Think of pregnenolone as the mother hormone and all other steroid hormones as her children. Under normal conditions, your body allocates pregnenolone across all of these hormone pathways in a balanced way. But when your body's under chronic stress, whether that's psychological stress, poor sleep, blood sugar instability, or inflammatory foods, it treats cortisol production as the highest priority. It diverts pregnenolone away from progesterone, testosterone, and DHEA production and funnels it almost exclusively into making more cortisol. This is why women in perimenopause who are also under high stress or whose diet is chronically spiking cortisol at night experience dramatically accelerated hormonal decline. The progesterone drops faster. The testosterone drops faster. The DHEA that supports mood, energy, and libido virtually disappears. And because progesterone is the primary hormone that buffers the effects of estrogen, its decline creates what's known as estrogen dominance, even when estrogen itself is falling. The ratio shifts and symptoms like breast tenderness, heavy periods, anxiety, and weight gain around the hips and belly intensify. This is not just about sleep quality. This is about the entire architecture of your endocrine system being systematically dismantled by chronic nighttime cortisol dysregulation. Now, let me tell you about number one. I told you this would surprise you. And for many of the health-conscious women watching this, this is the one that hits hardest. Protein shakes, especially whey protein, casein protein, and high BCA supplements have been marketed aggressively as ideal bedtime nutrition. The logic sounds reasonable. Your muscles repair overnight, so give them protein before bed. And for younger adults, particularly men under 35 engaged in heavy resistance training, there is some research supporting this practice. But for women over 45, and particularly for anyone in perimenopause or menopause, the hormonal reality is very different. Here's the mechanism that the supplement industry does not want you to know about. Branched-chain amino acids, specifically leucine, isoleucine, and valine, are powerful activators of a cellular signaling pathway called mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin. mTOR is essentially your body's growth and protein synthesis switch. When you activate mTOR strongly at night through high-dose BCAA consumption, you generate a significant metabolic stress response. This metabolic stress directly stimulates your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, your HPA axis, which is the central command system for cortisol production. Multiple studies have confirmed that high-dose BCAA supplementation before sleep increases nocturnal cortisol secretion, suppresses nighttime growth hormone release, and impairs the natural overnight hormonal recovery cycle. A 2024 study published in Frontiers in Endocrinology, and I'll put the full citation in the description below, specifically examined postmenopausal women who consumed whey protein shakes within 90 minutes of bedtime versus those who consumed the same amount of protein from whole food sources earlier in the evening. The whey group showed cortisol levels 41% higher during the first half of the night and reported significantly worse sleep quality, more nighttime awakenings, and higher rates of hot flash events compared to the whole food group. The protein itself wasn't the problem. The timing and the concentrated BCAA load were. If you want to support muscle maintenance and overnight recovery, which is absolutely important for women over 45 since sarcopenia is a real and serious concern, the evidence-based approach is to consume your protein earlier in the day and choose whole food sources in the evening if needed. A small serving of cottage cheese Greek yogurt or eggs 2 to 3 hours before bed provides adequate casein and tryptophan to support overnight repair without the mTOR activating cortisol spike of concentrated protein supplements. So let's recap the 5 foods to avoid before bed if you're over 45 and want to protect your hormonal health. Number 5, dark chocolate and cacao products, stimulant compounds, theobromine, and caffeine directly activate adrenal cortisol production and have a half-life of up to 12 hours. Number 4, aged cheeses and fermented meats. High tyramine content triggers norepinephrine release, activating the sympathetic nervous system and spiking cortisol. Number 3, high glycemic carbohydrates eaten without protein or fat cause reactive nocturnal hypoglycemia that triggers an emergency cortisol and adrenaline surge 2 to 4 hours after eating. Number 2, alcohol, including red wine, acetaldehyde production, and the nervous system rebound effect, spike cortisol during the second half of the night and directly disrupt estrogen metabolism in the liver. And number 1, Concentrated protein shakes and high BCAA supplements activate the mTOR pathway and stimulate the HPA axis, elevating nocturnal cortisol by up to 41% and suppressing the growth hormone release your body needs for overnight repair. None of this means these foods are permanently off limits. Timing is everything. Most of them cause no hormonal disruption when consumed earlier in the day. What your body does in the 2 to 4 hours before sleep is the critical window. If this video helped you understand what's been disrupting your sleep and your hormonal health, I want you to do 3 things right now. First, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. I publish a new hormonal health and longevity video every single day, and every one of them is built on peer-reviewed research that I reference directly, so you can verify everything I share. Second, drop a comment below and tell me which of these 5 foods surprised you the most. I read every comment personally and I respond to as many as I can. Your question might also become the topic of a future video. Third, I've put together a free PDF called the 7-Day Cortisol Reset Protocol. It includes the complete list of foods to avoid and when to avoid them, the foods that actively support nighttime cortisol reduction, a sample evening routine designed around hormonal recovery, and the 3 most evidence-backed supplements for supporting healthy cortisol rhythm after 45. The link to download it is in the description below. No cost, no strings attached. And finally, if you want to go deeper on how to rebuild your hormonal balance from the ground up after 45, watch the video appearing on screen right now. It covers the 3 morning habits that have been clinically shown to lower baseline cortisol, improve estrogen and progesterone balance, and dramatically improve sleep quality within 2 weeks. I'm Dr. James Andrews. I'll see you in the next one.